"There's a camera in your office," the little boy whispered. The CEO froze. He wasn't afraid for himself, he was afraid of what that meant for everyone else. What he discovered next didn't just change how he ran his company. It changed how he understood leadership. One of the most overlooked truths in leadership, workplace culture, and even everyday behavior is that people observe far more than we realize. It's easy to assume that our actions matter only when we are presenting, performing, or delivering results. But in reality, the moments that shape how others view us often happen in silence, in hallways, in side comments, in how we treat the receptionist, or how we handle stress when no formal audience seems present. Employees watch how their leaders communicate under pressure. Children watch how adults solve conflict. Teams watch how decisions are made, not just the decisions themselves. These observers form conclusions long before a leader ever steps into a meeting or gives a speech. What they see becomes the unofficial rulebook of the organization. If a leader demands respect but speaks disrespectfully, people notice. If a manager encourages collaboration but secretly plays favorites, people notice. If a company claims to value transparency but makes decisions behind closed doors, people notice. Even silence communicates. Even hesitation communicates. Even facial expression communicate, and the key is this. People notice intentions through behavior, not through statements. Leaders often assume that their authority comes from their job title or their formal power. But true influence comes from consistency, the alignment between what a leader says and what a leader does. When those two match, trust grows organically. When they don't, trust erodes quietly, sometimes permanently. This constant observation isn't about surveillance, it's about human nature. We learn by watching. We evaluate safety, credibility, and authenticity by watching. We decide whom we want to follow or avoid by watching. The little boy in the story symbolized this truth. It wasn't the physical camera that mattered, it was the reality that someone, somewhere, is always observing how we show up, who we are, and what values we actually live out. Organizations often spend enormous amounts of time crafting official policies, writing mission statements, printing value posters, and delivering motivational speeches. But these visible declarations, while important, are not what truly shape a company's culture. What really defines the environment is the unseen behavior, the quiet choices, the unwritten rules, and the subtle habits that develop when leaders believe no one is paying attention. A company can claim to value honesty, yet leaders might hide critical information from their teams. It can promote teamwork on paper while rewarding individuals for protecting their own interests. It may encourage creativity during meetings but punish mistakes behind closed doors. In each of these cases, the official policy contradicts the lived reality, and employees almost always recognize the difference instantly. Hidden actions become the true manual of behavior. People quickly learn what is actually expected, what is tolerated, and what is secretly discouraged. They learn when it's safe to speak up and when silence is the only acceptable response. They learn which rules exist only for show and which ones determine survival in the organization. This unspoken culture spreads faster and more powerfully than any formal training program. Humans are deeply sensitive to consistency. When leaders act differently from what they preach, employees assume the hidden behavior is the real standard. If a manager talks about innovation but never gives space for new ideas, employees stop trying. If a CEO declares transparency but relies on surveillance or secrecy, people learn that trust is conditional and fragile. This is why the hidden camera in the CEO office carried such symbolic weight. It exposed not just a device, but a mindset, a lack of trust. Masked behind polished policies, it reminded everyone that culture is built not by what leaders say publicly, but by what they practice privately. Children have a unique way of cutting through complexity without even realizing it. They don't analyze situations based on politics, hierarchy, fear, or consequences. Instead, they simply notice what is there and speak the truth as they see it. This innocence, free from the filters adults develop over time, often exposes realities that grown-ups are either too busy, too guarded, or too conditioned to acknowledge openly. In the story of the little boy pointing out the camera, his comment was not meant to accuse, embarrass, or challenge the CEO. To him, it was just an observation, something he had been shown by someone he trusted. But in sharing it, he unintentionally uncovered a serious issue, the lack of transparency within the company, and the silent breach of trust happening behind the scenes. Children often shine light on things we overlook precisely because we assume they don't understand, but their understanding comes from a place of purity, where they see patterns without overthinking them. A child can pick up tension in a room long before an adult acknowledges it. They can sense unfairness instantly. They notice when someone is pretending because they haven't yet learned to pretend themselves. Their natural honesty acts like a mirror, reflecting back truths we sometimes ignore or choose not to see. In leadership, this serves as a powerful reminder. If a child with no agenda and no filter can detect something wrong, then adults, especially employees, are definitely aware of it too. The difference is that adults often stay silent due to fear, consequences, or culture. Children, however, speak without calculating the cost. The boy's innocent remark revealed far more than a hidden device. It revealed the deeper truth that transparency, trust, and authenticity cannot be faked. They are either real or they are not, and even the youngest eyes can tell the difference. Transparency is one of the most powerful forces in any workplace because it nurtures trust, confidence, and psychological safety. When leaders openly communicate decisions, explain the reasoning behind policies, and invite honest dialogue, people feel respected. They feel seen and valued. Transparency signals that leaders are not hiding anything and that they believe in the maturity and capability of their teams. This belief alone inspires loyalty. On the other hand, secrecy operates like a silent toxin. It spreads uncertainty and anxiety. When employees sense that information is being withheld, they begin to make assumptions, and assumptions often grow darker than reality. Instead of focusing on their work, they focus on what might be happening behind closed doors. They worry about being excluded, monitored, or blindsided. Fear becomes the unspoken atmosphere of the workplace, and fear is one of the biggest killers of creativity, teamwork, and innovation. A transparent leader encourages open conversations, even when the topics are difficult. They admit mistakes. They share challenges. They clarify expectations. They involve their people in decisions, or at least explain the reasons when involvement isn't possible. This visibility builds a foundation of mutual respect. Employees become more loyal not because they must be, but because they want to be. They trust a leader who trusts them back. Secrecy, by contrast, erodes loyalty. When information is hidden, people assume danger. Even small actions, a private meeting, a hushed conversation, an unexpected change can trigger suspicion. Over time, secrecy divides people, fragments teams, and pushes talent away. Employees begin to look for safer, more open environments where trust is not treated like a privilege, but as a standard. The hidden cameras in the CEO office symbolize this exact divide. One culture built on control and another struggling to emerge based on trust. The moment secrecy is exposed, people don't just question the act, they question the leadership behind it. Ethical leadership is not a badge that someone earns once and wears forever. It is a continuous discipline, a daily commitment to evaluating one's own behavior, motives, and decisions with honesty. True ethics begin not with public declarations, but with private self-reflection. Leaders who consistently audit their own actions are far more likely to inspire trust and maintain credibility, because they are aware of the gap between who they are and who they claim to be. A self-audit, it requires asking uncomfortable questions. Would I still make this decision if everyone could see it? Am I doing what is right, or what is convenient? Is this choice aligned with my values, or just my ego? What impact will this have on people who cannot speak for themselves? These questions are not always easy, but they are essential. Without them, leaders drift into autopilot, where routine replaces responsibility. Over time, small compromises accumulate. A shortcut here, a rationalization there, and eventually a leader can find themselves far from the ethical standards they once believed in, often without noticing when the shift began. Self-audit, it also means acknowledging blind spots. Every leader has weaknesses, biases, and emotional triggers that can influence decisions. Recognizing them does not signal weakness, it signals maturity. A leader who understands their vulnerabilities is less likely to be controlled by them. They build systems, habits, and support networks that help them stay accountable. In the story of the hidden camera, the CEO's shock wasn't only about discovering surveillance. It was the realization that he had not been actively monitoring the culture of trust within his organization. He had assumed everything was fine because no one complained, but silence can be a deceptive measure of Stability, often it indicates fear, not satisfaction. Ethical leadership thrives when leaders evaluate themselves with the same scrutiny they expect from others. In every organization, whether a small business, a corporation, or a team of just a few people, the tone of the entire environment is set by the leadership at the top. Culture does not grow from the bottom upward, it flows from the top downward. Employees pay close attention to what leaders prioritize, what they ignore, what they reward, and what they tolerate. This means that meaningful, lasting change cannot occur unless those in senior positions take responsibility for embodying the values they expect from others. When leaders demonstrate integrity, transparency, empathy, and accountability, these qualities naturally cascade through the organization. People adjust their behavior to align with what they observe from leadership. They follow the example set for them. But when leaders show inconsistency, favoritism, or secrecy, those behaviors also spread sometimes faster and more deeply than positive ones. A single leader's conduct has the power to influence the attitudes of hundreds or even thousands of people, whether intentionally or not. Real change requires leaders to model the transformation they seek. This includes acknowledging when systems are broken, admitting when policies are outdated, and recognizing when trust has been weakened. It also means taking visible steps to correct the issues, not just announcing intentions. Change becomes credible only when employees see leaders acting differently, communicating openly, and demonstrating behaviors that reflect the new standards being promoted. In the story of the hidden camera, the CEO had to confront the reality that his organization had drifted into a culture of surveillance and fear, a culture that he, as the leader, was ultimately responsible for correcting. Removing the cameras wasn't enough. He needed to rebuild trust, reshape expectations, and redefine the company's values through his own conduct. His response showed that transformation begins not with a memo, but with a leader who is willing to change first. In the end, the hidden camera was not the real threat. The real danger was the invisible gap between what the organization claimed to be and what it had actually become. That single moment, brought to light by the innocence of a child, forced the CEO to look inward, to confront uncomfortable truths, and to make a choice. Continue along a path built on fear and secrecy, or rebuild a culture grounded in trust and integrity. He chose change, but more importantly, he chose accountability, and that is the message for every leader, every employee, every parent, and every individual listening today. You are being observed not to expose you, but to learn from you. Whether you realize it or not, your actions ripple outward and shape the world around you. You become a model for someone, a colleague, a friend, a stranger, or a child. So let the camera, real or symbolic, serve as a reminder. Lead in a way you're proud to be seen. Act in a way you're proud to be remembered. Live in a way that reflects values, not just intentions. Because someone is watching. Someone is learning. Someone is becoming who they will be based on who you choose to be. And that, more than anything, is the true power and responsibility of leadership.